if you're creating a melody, just make it as unique as possible and stay away from it sounding like it's car commercial music, and just make it like, I always try and just make it as unique as possible using new sounds, new instruments, and then add drums over top, and then often just make the beat in a few minutes. And then you should, in the same session, I'll have like my vocal chain and everything, all my sends already set up, and then you just start recording. And then with that, you can kind of like change the beat around to their vocals because it's all in the same session, you know what I'm saying? So like, they'll just record some shit. I already have all my like my sick chain set up and everything, so it already sounds amazing, you know?
Right.
And then basically from there, you just do a little bit of editing, this and that, and then before you know it, you have like an already nice sounding, almost complete song after like maybe an hour or two, you know?
That's great.
So I think that's kind of just having it all prepared already in the session. I have like numerous different templates depending on like what kind of vibe I'm going for. Some will have like different reverb effects or different delay effects, and then others will have like, I'll open the session, I already have like the VSTs and stuff that I like ready to go. I already have the drum sound set up that I like. So it just like speeds the process up, and you're always catering to the artist, right? So if the artist is ready to record, you have to be ready, because they might have a great idea that you just have to be ready to record like from the jump, you know? Right. You don't want to miss that magical moment when they're first getting excited about it, and so you just have to be really just prepared, I guess. It's the biggest thing.
What's your DAW of choice?
Oh man, for making beats, FL Studio, and then I do all my recording in Ableton lately.
And so do you sort of bring the stems in from FL, or do you bounce it all down to a stereo and bring it into live?
Just bounce an MP3, throw it in sometimes. But often, that's only been my process recently. Usually I'm making the beat in Ableton and recording the vocals in Ableton.
Right.
But lately I've been getting into FL. I really like the way it sounds. So I've been doing that. I might start recording in FL Studio soon. We'll see.
What do you mean you like the way it sounds? How does it sound?
It's loud. It's super loud. It's just like, I don't know. I find there's just something magical about FL Studio. Like, you don't have to mix as much. Like, you just can kind of like throw on a soft clipper or limiter and just kind of mix into it.
Right.
And your beat will sound like just smackingly loud, and like,
cool.
That's usually what artists want nowadays, is just like super loud and just slaps. So I've been kind of getting more into that, you know.
That's great. One thing I want to, before I continue on with my line of questioning, I want to go back to something you were talking about. Can you tell us a little bit about the content of your vocal chain? Are you able to reveal some of the components of that for us? Even just general? Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's a lot of it's a lot of EQing. It's about 3 Pro Qs.
Wow.
I don't use any hardware. Actually, I learned that from you. Anything you can do outside the box, you can do inside the box.
Futchman.
It's a lot of EQs. I'll do a low cut at about -8 decibels from about 5 to 7K down. So I'm basically cutting out everything low, and then I kind of add the lows back in just so they're more controlled. I've been using what's that thing called? There's this multi-band it's my new sauce. It's called like the MC2000 or something. Hold on, let me pull this up really quick. It's so good. But yeah, that I really love the Eosis de-esser. Um, and hold on one second here.
What do you love about that de-esser in particular?
It adds a nice high end. I find it pulls out all the frequencies you don't want, and it adds like a really cool like kind of high end that I like. Yeah, the Mic DSP. This is what it is. The MC, I think 404.
Okay.
Yeah, the MC 404 from Mic DSP. That's my secret sauce right now.
Shout
So
out
I'll add
Mic
that.
DSP.
Shout out Mic DSP, and then I'll have three C6s, usually 3 to 5 C6s, all cutting like very small frequency bands. So like I'll usually have a cut around like 12 to 13K. Usually have a cut around in the harsh 5 to 7 that everyone hates, and then I'll usually have a cut around 1 to 4K, anywhere around there. And you just obviously use your ears, but yeah, I'm all about using very narrow, because a lot of the time with multi-band compression, you lose the power in the vocal. But if you do it with very narrow Q width, then you can still lose the harsh frequencies without losing the power in the vocal. So just kind of been focusing on that.
That's a heavy chain, and I assume you just record raw, and then all of this processing is done later, right?
No, it's all on there.
You track through it.
I'll track through all of it.
I love it. That's great.
God has to sound like a finished record while they're recording, you know?
That's amazing. That's genius. So any latency problems?
No, never.
No?
If you usually you get like maybe a couple milliseconds, but if an artist is super picky about that, then I'll just go to the Universal Audio stuff, because it has basically no latency at all. So
right. Okay, so for the listeners that don't really understand this process, and just to be clear, you're bringing your signals in through like an input channel, doing all this processing on it, and then taking the output of that channel and bringing it into a new track on which you record this processed audio. Is that correct?
basically I'll have like in Ableton you can create groups, and so I'll have my entire vocal chain on the group, and then you just have your tracks underneath that and you record it, and anything being recorded is going through that vocal chain. So and then from there you can have all your sends, you add your reverb, delays or whatever, and then it's just super easy to like automate those. You can do like reverb throws or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome.
But I'll just like, by the time I'm mixing, just making very minor adjustments to the chain because it already sounds so good. It's already very dialed in, you know?
Right. Do you sort of like do minor adjustments like per vocalist, but your sort of de facto settings sort of work for everybody?
Exactly. And that's the reason I switched over to using multiband. Like, I stopped doing EQ cuts and stuff because nowadays, like, a vocalist might change their cadence every bar. So it's like, are you really going to go in and EQ each bar separately? Like, no. So with like multiband, it just kind of rides the vocal for you, and you don't really have to do too much or worry too much about that. So that's why I started doing it that way rather than my old way, which was like making a million different little cuts and finding all the bad frequencies. Is like, you don't have to do all that, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried any of those smart EQs like Gullfoss or Soothe?
I use Soothe. I'll use Soothe in mixing just because Soothe is a lot of latency. You can't really record with it.
Right.
Sometimes if I find there's like harsh mids and stuff that I can't control so easily, I'll go to Soothe. But again, Soothe you have to use very carefully.
Because of the bandwidth?
Yeah, it can take like a lot of the sauce out of the vocal too.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta use it, sparingly. But Gullfoss is sick. I love Gullfoss.
It's my favorite plugin of all time.
That goes on the master.
Me too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
27 up, 27 down.
There you go. It's an incredible plugin for sure.
It really is. I love
Game
it so
changer.
much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out Sound Theory.
Yeah.